There's a software engineer in Seattle making $215,000 a year. She got a 22% raise 18 months ago. She took a 2-week vacation in Italy in the spring. Her apartment costs $3,800 a month. By any visible signal, her life improved when her income did. Ask her if she's happier. She'll pause longer than you expect. This isn't an isolated observation. It's a documented, measurable phenomenon that 2 decades of research have now mapped with precision. And the findings contradict one of the most deeply held beliefs in personal finance, that more income produces more well-being, and that the relationship between the two is continuous, that every raise, every promotion, every jump in salary produces a corresponding improvement in how your life actually feels. It doesn't, not past a specific number, and in certain cases it makes things measurably worse. According to a 2021 Gallup poll, 45% of Americans cite a lot of money as essential to achieving the American dream. According to a 2023 Empower survey, the average American believes they need to earn $233,000 annually to feel financially comfortable. The assumption is nearly universal. More income means more well-being, and the gap between where you are and where you need to be is primarily a gap in earnings. The data has a different story. Let me show you exactly where the relationship between income and well-being breaks down, what the research says actually happens above that line, and why millions of high earners are running a race that the evidence says they already can't win. The research that started this conversation. In 2010, Princeton economist Angus Deaton and psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who would later win the Nobel Prize in economics, published a study using Gallup data from 450,000 Americans. Their finding entered the cultural conversation immediately and has never left. Emotional well-being, they found, rose with income up to approximately $75,000 per year. Above that threshold, additional income produced no further improvement in day-to-day emotional experience. People above $75,000 weren't measurably happier in their daily lives than people at $75,000 despite earning more. The researchers attributed this to the idea that beyond a certain point, money stops solving the problems that actually drive daily emotional states. That $75,000 figure became one of the most cited statistics in behavioral economics. It was adjusted for inflation in subsequent years, roughly $100,000 to $110,000 in 2024 dollars. And for a decade, it was treated as settled. Then a different researcher ran a larger study and got a completely different result. And the contradiction between the two findings tells you more about the relationship between money and well-being than either study does alone. The study that complicated everything. Matthew Killingsworth is a happiness researcher at the University of Pennsylvania. In 2021, he published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that used a fundamentally different methodology. Rather than asking people to evaluate their lives in retrospect, Killingsworth's app, called Track Your Happiness, pinged participants throughout the day and asked how they were feeling at that exact moment. Over 1.7 million real-time reports from more than 33,000 people. His finding directly contradicted Kahneman and Deaton. Experienced well-being, how people actually felt moment to moment, continued rising with income well beyond $75,000. There was no plateau. The higher the income, the higher the reported happiness, with no ceiling Killingsworth could detect in his data. 2 credible researchers, 2 rigorous methodologies, directly contradictory findings about one of the most important questions in behavioral economics. The scientific community did something unusual. Kahneman and Killingsworth agreed to collaborate directly to reconcile the discrepancy. They published a joint paper in 2023, co-authored with Barbara Mellers of the University of Pennsylvania. The reconciliation revealed something neither original study had captured, something that fundamentally changes how you should think about income and your own life. What the reconciled data actually shows. The joint paper found that both studies were correct for different people. For approximately 80% of the population, people the researchers classified as generally happy, Killingsworth's finding held. Well-being continued rising with income across the full income range they measured, with no plateau. But for the remaining 20%, people with lower baseline happiness, often carrying what the researchers called misery, Kahneman and Deaton's finding held. For this group, income improvements reduced their suffering up to roughly $100,000 per year. Above that threshold, additional income produced no further relief. The headline from the original Kahneman-Deaton study, that money stops buying happiness at $75,000, turned out wasn't wrong. It was averaged across a population that included both groups, and the averaging obscured a critical distinction. Here is what the 2023 joint paper actually proves. For people whose unhappiness is driven primarily by financial stress, more money helps, but only up to the point where the financial stress is resolved. Beyond that point, the unhappiness persists because it was never actually about money. The source of the suffering is something income cannot purchase a solution to. According to Federal Reserve data, 28% of American adults say they are just getting by or finding it difficult to get by financially. For this group, additional income up to roughly $100,000 produces meaningful relief. Above that threshold, the data says the money stops reaching the actual problem. For the 80% who are generally content, more money does continue producing more well-being, but the mechanism matters. The 2023 paper found that for high earners, income improved well-being primarily when it was translated into specific things: autonomy, reduced time pressure, and freedom from activities they found aversive. When high income was consumed by lifestyle maintenance instead, by the overhead of an expensive life, the well-being gains were dramatically reduced or absent. This is the finding that most summaries of this research miss entirely. The mechanism: why high income stops translating. There is a specific psychological process that explains why higher income so frequently fails to produce the well-being gains people expect. It is called hedonic adaptation, and it is documented extensively across behavioral economics, psychology, and consumer research. The core finding: humans adapt rapidly to improved circumstances. What once produced pleasure becomes the baseline. The emotional boost from any positive change, a raise, a new car, a larger home, dissipates within 6 to 18 months. The new level becomes ordinary. The desire for further improvement returns. This mechanism is not a character flaw. It is a feature of human psychology that produces reliable, measurable outcomes at the population level. Kahneman himself called it the hedonic treadmill, a term now standard in the field. Brickman and Campbell, in their foundational 1971 paper on adaptation, showed that lottery winners reported happiness levels not significantly different from control groups within 1 year of their windfall. A 2007 study by Rottenberg et al., tracking individuals over multiple years, found that most people returned to baseline happiness levels within 2 years of major positive or negative life events. Here is how the treadmill operates specifically for income growth. Someone earning $85,000 gets a promotion to $130,000. For several months, the raise produces genuine improvement, reduced financial anxiety, more flexibility, a heightened sense of progress. Then the lifestyle adjusts. The apartment gets upgraded, the car gets leased, the dining habits shift. Within 12 to 18 months, the $130,000 feels like what $85,000 felt like before. Adequate, but not enough. The raise was real. The adaptation erased it. The American Psychological Association's 2023 Stress in America report found that 72% of Americans report money as a significant source of stress. Among Americans earning over $100,000, 59% still report money as a significant source of stress. The absolute level drops modestly with income, but the stress persists across income brackets at rates that contradict the assumption that higher earnings resolve financial anxiety. The data from Schwab's 2024 Modern Wealth Survey makes the adaptation mechanism visible at scale. When asked what annual income would make them feel financially comfortable, Americans earning $50,000 said $100,000. Americans earning $100,000 said $200,000. Americans earning $200,000 said $350,000. Across every income bracket, the threshold for comfortable cites approximately twice the respondent's current income. The target moves with the earner, not because the goal is irrational, but because adaptation continuously resets the baseline against which enough is measured. What high earners are actually buying. If income above a certain threshold doesn't reliably produce more well-being, what is it producing? Transaction data and consumer research provide a specific answer. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey, households in the top income quintile, averaging approximately $220,000 annually, spend $154,000 per year on consumption. Households in the middle quintile, averaging approximately $62,000, spend $55,000. High earners consume roughly 2.8 times more, but report, per the research above, only marginally higher life satisfaction. The category-level breakdown reveals where high-income spending concentrates. Housing costs averaging $34,000 annually versus $18,000 for middle-income households. Vehicle costs of $16,000 versus $9,000. Food spending of $15,000 versus $8,000. Each category is larger in absolute terms. The proportions are nearly identical. A 2024 analysis from the J.P. Morgan Chase Institute, tracking anonymized spending data across 8 million households, found that income increases above $150,000 were absorbed by spending increases within 24 months in the majority of cases. The savings rate for households earning $150,000 to $250,000 averaged 11.2%. For households earning $75,000 to $100,000, it averaged 9.8%. The gap in savings behavior is smaller than the gap in income by a factor of more than 10. What the high earners are buying, the data suggests, is primarily status maintenance and time convenience, categories that produce real but temporary well-being gains, followed by rapid adaptation, followed by baseline reset. The food delivery spending that averages $179 monthly among higher earners, according to Empower data. The premium car subscriptions, the business class upgrades, the renovation budgets, each purchase is defensible. None of them, in aggregate, produces the sustained well-being improvement that the income funding them would logically seem to support. The exception, when more income does produce more well-being. The 2023 Killingsworth-Kahneman joint paper identified specific conditions under which higher income does continue producing measurable well-being gains above the $100,000 threshold. The common factor across all conditions, the income was used to purchase autonomy and the reduction of aversive obligations, not consumption. Specifically, the research found robust well-being gains from income when it was used to eliminate a financial constraint that was actively limiting choices, being able to decline a job offer, take a sabbatical, relocate freely, reduce time spent on activities the person found deeply aversive, outsourcing specific high-friction tasks, not general consumption, and create a cushion large enough to eliminate the background financial anxiety that consumes cognitive bandwidth. This final finding connects directly to research by Mullainathan and Shafir, whose 2013 book Scarcity documented that financial anxiety, the cognitive load of managing limited resources, produces a measurable reduction in effective IQ. Their studies, now widely replicated, found that people cognitively preoccupied with financial scarcity performed worse on reasoning and decision-making tasks by the equivalent of 13 IQ points. The anxiety itself is expensive. The implication, income that eliminates financial anxiety produces sustained well-being gains. Income that funds lifestyle expansion produces temporary gains followed by adaptation. These are not the same use of money, and the data treats them differently. According to a 2024 Fidelity survey, only 33% of Americans say they feel financially secure, meaning they could sustain their lifestyle for 12 months without income. Among households earning $150,000 or more, 51% report the same level of security. The majority of high earners do not have the cushion that the research says actually drives sustained well-being. They have consumption, the number. All of this brings the data to a specific, calculable threshold. The $100,000 figure from Kahneman and Deaton, updated to approximately $100,000 to $125,000 in 2024 dollars, represents the point at which income reliably resolves financial stress for most Americans. Below this threshold, additional income produces reliable well-being gains through a straightforward mechanism. It reduces the frequency and severity of financial constraints. Above this threshold, the data becomes conditional. More income continues producing well-being gains only when the specific conditions identified in the 2023 joint paper are met. The income is being used to purchase autonomy and eliminate aversive obligations, not to fund adaptation-prone consumption. For the majority of American high earners, per the spending and savings data above, those conditions are not being met. The income is absorbed by lifestyle. The adaptation mechanism erases the gains. The threshold for enough continues moving. This produces the pattern the Goldman Sachs 2025 report documented. 41% of Americans earning $300,000 to $500,000 living paycheck to paycheck. Not because $400,000 is insufficient to build financial security, because the spending patterns of the median high earner prevent the income from reaching the uses that actually produce sustained well-being. A household earning $180,000 annually with a 20% savings rate, $36,000 per year invested, will accumulate at historical 7% average market returns over $3.6 million in 30 years. A household earning $180,000 with a 5% savings rate will accumulate approximately $900,000 over the same period. Same income, same market. The gap is $2.7 million, produced entirely by the decision about what percentage of income to retain rather than spend. The research does not say that more income is without value. It says the relationship between income and well-being is not linear, not continuous, and highly sensitive to how the income is used. Earning more past the $100,000 to $125,000 threshold improves life under one specific condition. When the additional income is used to purchase freedom from constraint, not consumption, that adaptation will erase within a year. What the data proves. 77% of Americans report feeling financial stress regardless of income bracket. 59% of those earning over $100,000 cite money as a significant stressor. 41% of those earning $300,000 to $500,000 live paycheck to paycheck. The median American believes $233,000 annually would feel financially comfortable, and those earning $233,000 believe they need roughly twice that. The belief that more income solves the problem is the problem. The research on well-being, adaptation, and the specific uses of money that produce sustained improvement is consistent across 2 decades of data from multiple research traditions. Income above approximately $100,000 to $125,000 produces well-being when used to build the margin, autonomy, and freedom from constraint that adaptation cannot erase. Consumed into lifestyle, it produces the same thing a lower income would: the appearance of comfort and the persistence of anxiety. The exact salary where earning more stops improving your life is not a fixed number. It is the salary at which you stop translating income into autonomy and start translating it into things that disappear by next year. For most Americans, that threshold is lower than they earn right now. If this changed how you think about the relationship between your income and your actual life, subscribe and leave a comment with which statistic in this video surprised you most. I'll see you in the next one.